Hi, this is Andy Maas. Today we're going to be talking about the Marauder. This happens to be a 4 cubic yard spreader, and we're going to also be talking about the Tri-Shield that is installed on this spreader. So what is Tri-Shield? Tri-Shield gives us the ability, that's Western's granular, which is obviously what's going to be in the big hopper. We got the direct application, which is coming out with these nozzles on the bottom. And then finally your pre-treat, which is going to be spraying the brine onto the salt as it's coming out of the spreader. So a lot of questions get asked about when should I use which application. We've got granular, we've got our direct application, and then we've got a combination of just directly applying it to the ground. A lot of times you're going to do the direct application before a storm. So that's something where you would go out, you'd have the tanks full, you're just going to spray down directly onto the surface. Your next one, when you're going to be doing pre-treated material, to be honest, you could do that in either scenario. You could do that before a storm, especially if you're going to get a larger storm. You might want to put that down. The reason you do that is because you're going to have more salt there as that snow falls. It will melt more of that, that snow. And lastly, just your granular. If you just are trying to put down on a surface ahead of time, that gives you that flexibility too, to just put the salt down directly. And when the snow falls, it's going to just start to melt and dissipate right away. And it won't get bonded to the surface. Those are the big reasons why we're using any of these three options to begin with, is to stop that bond to the surface. All right, so on the outside here, there's a couple things that you should know. First of all, when you're doing the brine, I always recommend turning the tanks off when you're done with it. So right now we'd want to turn this on, okay? So we're gonna just turn that on. And lastly, then this knob here, this valve, you're gonna be controlling whether you wanna have the direct application here, or you're gonna have where you're gonna be pre-treating the salt as it's coming out. All right, so let's talk a little bit about the controls here. So you've got a 2-knob control. We've got our material width here. And about where I have it set is, I would say typically where I'm gonna run it about right now. This one I might have down just a little bit more, somewhere along in that range. And that already is correlating with what I set the back up with as far as how much brine I wanted to pre-treat on the material. We also have it currently set to pre-treat the salt. So all I'd have to do right now is hit the pre-wet button here, and then that would turn that pump on, making sure that you have the valve open. And then of course, hit the power button, that's gonna turn it all on. I already have material in the spreader, so I don't wanna be hitting all the buttons and have it spread all over here. But once you hit the power on, it's going to spread at these 2 widths. If you want to then have the pre-wet on, you just hit the pre-wet button and that will be flowing. I would check on it occasionally. You are spraying, liquid in by the salt, and it can plug up, like there is that, if too much comes out all at one time, you can get it to where it might be a little bit plugged up. So just keep that in mind. Of course, too, you have your blast button here. You can hit the blast button and just, if you need to, give yourself more material, which is kind of why I leave the knob set here on a fairly regular basis, and then I will just use the blast button if I'm in an intersection or a heavily trafficked area in a parking lot or something.